We don't need it. Let's. Dana's taking the
Those are
roll.
my camp age, back
Okay.
when I was a counselor.
Where's our?
There it is.
Trustee Goldberg,
Here.
trustee Solly,
Here.
trustee Ehrlich,
Here.
trustee Hansen,
Here.
trustee Hanky,
Here.
president Lamont.
Here. Okay, we have an agenda. Do I have a, before you, do I have a motion to adopt it?
I move.
Any changes or questions?
I thought that after we had our legal committee meeting, we were gonna have were we gonna have any discussion on the marquee sign today? Or no?
I think we were going to wait till,
The costs from,
till Mike is back next month.
okay.
It's going to planning on the 18th. No,
Oh,
we'll get
okay,
it.
good.
Yeah.
So Roger did his end, which was you were gonna get, maybe, you're gonna reach
Well,
out.
we looked at costs.
Yeah, get some costs.
The other issue is the restrictions in our current policies with respect to backlit signage.
Okay, but again, when this was originally brought up, the issue was whether or not the village should get a marquee sign similar to the churches to communicate with residents. That evolved into we could do something electronic, and then I saw some report that it went to HRC as a request to put an electronic sign downtown. That isn't the case. The discussion and analysis is whether we need some type of a sign with a historic flair to it that serves to communicate with the residents. And if electronically lit signs is not the way to go, then it would have to be the old school way, where someone has to physically go out there and change it as it needs to be changed. But they're two separate issues. The first is, do we want to have a sign of a communicative nature of some sort? And then the second issue is, what is inside the sign? The outside of it would be something that was designed to look and blend with the historic nature of
Yeah. And,
area.
and hopefully, Planning Commission is looking at both of those issues.
They have the opportunity
Right,
to do that.
because
Okay.
correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not just make the church historic, and doesn't it have a sign in front of it?
It has a sign on the corner.
I don't know.
You got it. Okay. Okay, so that is not added to the agenda
No,
tomorrow.
so I guess if that's the issue, then we will, then we won't need to, we'll wait till Mike gets back, and we'll wait until the
Gotcha.
planning commission, we get their input on it. Okay?
Chris
And-
Susan did some research and
Okay,
he
good. So
turned it over to
Then if that's
Stuart.
the case, then the agenda seems to be okay.
Well, my only issue with the agenda is the Slang Hill, which we have yet to talk about ever once, because it's not in our institution. We haven't talked about zoning the Sledding Hill. So every time we take it out, and this time
We are-
it keeps getting itself back in.
But we are considering it for
Right.
We
the
are
first time.
considering it? Is
Yeah.
it the whole hill or just that little base at the bottom?
No, the whole hill, which we own,
Oh, then I missed that.
because the village owns the hill.
Yes, I'm
The FCA owns the little
missing it
strip,
in,
yeah.
us discussing it, fine, then I missed it.
I think that's all part of these 5 items
It
that
should
we
be,
haven't
I
addressed
agree,
yet. Yeah,
it should be, but
Gotcha.
okay.
that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay, fine.
Any other comments about the
I
agenda?
have a question that might be in it, that my understanding is that you are getting close, or you have resolved the property issues?
Yeah, that's on here.
It is?
Today, yeah, it's today, it's in our packet.
Yeah, B, XB, 10B.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, I didn't recognize the,
Yeah, we're done.
okay.
Okay, anything else? So, all in favor of approving the agenda? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, minutes of the last meeting. You have a motion to approve?
I move.
Second?
A second?
Any comments? No comments? All in favor?
Aye.
See
Aye?
a typo in 7.
One typo.
That's the
Typo.
total.
That's pretty
That doesn't-
impressive, one typo, that's it.
Page 7?
say- Item 7,
Item 7.
submission of current bill, I see a typo.
You want to point that out so Dana
Says
knows?
Total's 159 million or some number like that, something like that.
Oh, yeah, I see it.
Oh, you got an extra digit in there.
I'll make that correction.
Except for that, I would think.
Okay, on page 3, yep, the chart, okay. All in favor of approving the minutes, aye?
Aye.
Okay, public requests and comments. Is there anybody out there to make public comments? If not, we'll move on to village officer and agent reports. Dan, you're up. Dan Roberts. Police report.
Good evening, everyone. You have our written submission, I hope. Just one thing that I do want to highlight from that, and it's an unfortunate thing, is we did have our first residential burglary in a very long time over on Rosemont. And we know that that one, just based on the evidence of the scene, is connected to burglaries in Bloomfield Township, as well as Northville and Bloomfield Hills. And this is an organized ring, we believe a Chilean crew that has been working in the area. And so we have a task force working together, utilizing the FBI because of all of their technical tools, and us in Bloomfield Township and Northville and some others are involved in that case. So I hope we get some breaks in that fairly soon. Oh, cool, where's mine? And yeah. But that's really the first break-in that we've had in a very long time in Franklin. So that was unfortunate, but we're working on that. The other thing I'll mention is our deputy chief interviews. Roger and Susan and Ken Martin from Bingham Farms and I have been questioning candidates. We started last week with 3 interviews, and we have 4 more Wednesday of this week scheduled. The candidate pool is excellent, as I've mentioned before. I think, of the interviews we've done so far, we've all been impressed with the caliber of the candidates that we're seeing, and we know that we have 4 more good ones coming in later this week. Our goal is to narrow it down, to 2, maybe 3 candidates, Roger, and bring them before council for final approval as to which ones you all would like to pick. But I think it's going to be a tough choice, frankly, based on our interviews so far. I think the candidates are just really good. Other than that, I don't have anything else unless you have questions for me. Yes, ma'am?
With regards to the burglary, I got some calls about some comments Sheriff Bouchard made.
Yes,
Is what you're talking about related to what he was warning people in Oakland County about?
it is. Yes,
Okay.
we all contributed to his comments on that. So we didn't figure out we needed to each do a separate press release. We just had the sheriff do one, and so.
So what do you think about his comments, and what action is being taken, and how should residents view this?
Residents should view it like they would any other time. We hope that residents would set their alarms. That would be very helpful when they leave. In many cases here in these burglaries, the residents had alarms that weren't set, and so we would ask you to do all of the common sense things that you would do for any other crime. When you're out of town, please fill out a house check form with us so that we can come by and check on your home multiple times while you're gone. But yes, we believe this is a foreign crew that is operating in the United States. They happen to be in Michigan over the past few weeks, and that's when we got hit. And these things happen. And so I don't really have anything new or additional that I can add to the sheriff's comments. I think he's right on point. But I don't want to give too much either because we're still actively investigating this case. So.
The camera systems we have, are those, where there was, are the camera systems downtown, but they were not?
That wouldn't apply to where this was over on Rosemont, which is off a Northwestern Highway, so there wouldn't be anywhere near helpful. Yeah, they wouldn't be helpful in this case. Now, some of the burglaries did have camera systems that were helpful, very helpful, and that's how we know about this Chilean crew. So, we would just ask, please call us if anything's suspicious, you see anybody suspicious, and please set your alarms if you're not going to be home.
Anything else for Dan? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Tony Everbach, Fire Department.
Good evening. You have my written report. The only thing I wanted to add was twofold. First off, a thank you to the village for your support again with our grant, what was it called, a Turnout Gear Grant Program. So the final paperwork was submitted last week, so it was a lot of rush and hurry up to get this done by September 31st. Where on September 31st, we got an email that said, yeah, you can take until the end of the year. So
It's done.
perfect. So thank you for that. The other thing I wanted to let you all know is another grant program came out through MIOSHA. It was a small employer grant program. And we did apply for that, and so it's a matching dollar-for-dollar grant program. The paperwork has been submitted. It's up to MIOSHA at this point to let us know if we're able to get it, but the worst they can say is no, so I'm good with that. Other than that, and pending your questions, that'll conclude my report.
Any questions?
No questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Treasurer Lance Vanek.
Good evening, trustees and president. Please accept my written report in the capacity as the village treasurer. The bills list report for this month totals $995,217.85. The amounts on the bills list are consistent with normal monthly spending, and the expenditures are generally consistent with our budget. This bills list for this month includes a large entry of $38,100. It's for mowing, tree trimming, various repairs we paid to Johnston Landscaping. We also saw some tax refunds, tax disbursement for the Franklin Library and also the fire department, if you look on that. The village has sufficient funds to meet its current and anticipated obligations, and the list of account balances in your package is as of October the 1st that we hold at First Merchant Bank. There's balances held in interest-bearing insured CDs, and money markets are held at multi-bank securities as well. That's included in the consolidated report. Any questions?
Oh, are we then
No.
approving the bills list?
No.
No, this was.
Never mind, I've got
Okay.
a question about that.
Sure.
Lance, how are we doing on our overnight, our short-term investments now that the interest?
I don't have the exact balances, but anything that we would have, the interest rates have gone significantly higher. So, I can't give you the specifics right now, but I'd be happy to check in with Roger and I'll follow up with
Would
you.
be good to have a
Yeah.
report, because we're counting on, that's
Sure.
extra cash, and I'd be interested in knowing from month to month,
Sure.
or at least quarterly, maybe, how those are doing.
I'll see if I can paint a picture for
That'd be
you.
great, thank you.
Now, current bills. We have a list of bills. Do I have a motion to approve the bills list?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Discussion? Questions?
Talk to me about the cable casting board thing. What is that? $22,000. Cable franchise, peg fees.
That's the portion that we have to give back to the cable board.
So we're giving it back.
Explain that
Gotcha.
anymore.
We get money from Comcast and give it to the
Okay,
cable board. Yep.
okay.
I have a question about GFL. It's about a $14,000 bill. What is a residential hand pickup?
It's what you get every day.
Yeah, it's
That's what we pay.
it's when they actually grab the trash and throw it in the back, right?
That's what that is?
Yeah. Yep.
It's just how they worded on the bill, but
Yeah.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I
That's just regular trash pickup.
remember.
The
Yeah.
next
Trash-
line item is when they have to send that special truck because for heavier equipment.
Yeah,
or
okay, okay.
Heavier property.
All right.
Refrigerator.
Thank you for the
couches.
clarification.
Any other questions?
I had a couple. Oh, no, you go, Kathy, you're next. No, no.
Clemis membership, what is that?
That's PD, that's their software that they use to do
The
their.
police department's software, okay,
Yep.
okay. Go ahead, I'll get there.
David?
The chief, I was just curious what a challenge coin was when we,
Oh, yeah.
Challenge coin, those are those nice color coins that you have, that you're awarded for meritorious service.
okay,
That's
that's, okay,
what
the
they
one we
passed out.
gave them, okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yep.
Yep, cool. I think,
That's our definition of it. Yeah, yeah.
but that's what we spent that money on.
Right.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Right,
And it comes out of their state forfeiture money.
Yeah.
So.
right.
And then, so in the HRC bill, so I do see some bills trickling in on Apple Tree Irving easement, kind of. Can we get an update from them on where we're at? Oh, actually Nancy's here. I'm just curious.
You want it now or you want it later?
We can do it later. I just want, it doesn't even have to be today. I just was curious, if it's still ongoing, what's the latest with which of the potential pathways?
Yeah, I don't think anything's changed in the pathways, but there's been, Nancy and others have been involved in conversations with some of the property owners where we had to bring them up to date with choices were, and there were 3, I think, that were asked if they would sign off on those transfers, and they said yes, but we had to pay them to do some of that work, and it was attributed to the project.
Okay.
So the Ben Franklin vehicle stickers, says for police, are those the ones that the residents have on their,
Correct.
so that is still something that's going on, where people can, they come here to pick it up?
They go to the police department.
They go to the police department to pick up the stickers to put on their car so that the police basically know that you're a Franklin resident or not, right? And it had since I was a kid. I didn't realize it was still going on.
Correct.
All right.
Then it says, dehumidifiers for Village Hall, Krieger Hall, and then it says replacement of dehumidifier for Village Hall.
One of them blew up as soon as we put it down there, so we got a replacement.
So did we get,
We got credit, there's credits in and out of there.
I see the red for the credit, so we bought 3?
We bought 2. The other credit was something the PD bought.
Oh, okay. Alright.
All right. What's a roll-up stop sign with stands?
Those are those stop signs that they put when your power goes out on your intersections and they have those stop signs. They owed us, when I first bought that last year, they owed us and stuff from it, so I had to pay it until it came.
Okay. Oh,
Lots of questions. Anything else?
And then, Bill, we had passed the motion last week for reimbursement of the, dinner, lunch with Representative Talib. Has that been repaid?
Yes.
The very next day.
Yep. It's already
Okay,
processed.
so it's not on here though.
Right, no, it's not gonna be on there, it's already gone through everything.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor of approving the bills list, say aye.
aye.
Okay. Next thing, special reports, president report, I have nothing specific to talk about. Council members, any
I have one.
reports?
I have one. So, I see that this year again, we have, displays around the village of straw men of various characters. That display was organized by whom?
The Historical Society.
I'm sorry?
The Historical Society.
Now, when we normally, every other group that comes out there, they file so I understand the Historical Society is accepting contributions for those.
No,
No.
no.
That's not what I see on the website, that you were, in the email, that you were asking for donations for those.
For the scarecrows?
Yes.
No, the
You're
people make
misreading.
their own and they pay for their own when they come get it, like the people go.
Yeah, they buy it,
They
they
buy
buy
it,
a
they're
kit
buying it
and they
themselves.
take it home.
Now, but there's never, there's these scarecrows around the village properties. I never saw a request for any kind of, normally when anything happens in the village property, there's a request for a permit, and that's not done. Why was that not done?
Been doing it for 5 years. It's not an activity. It's, if you want an application, I'll fill out an application, but,
I mean, that's something that, we should follow all the same rules. Can any group decide they want to put those out there, or their version of what they want to put out there?
you can answer that question. I don't know.
Well, the answer is no. They
Well,
have
if
to go
you-
through a permitting process to do this.
At which point?
My point is that your group is doing these
It's
displays.
not my group, it's a
You're
village-wide
pres-
group.
You're
I'm
president
part of it.
of it.
Correct.
You're
I'm not president of it.
And you're doing these displays and generating money out of it.
We're not making any money out of these.
So
How is it different than putting out a sign that when like?
No, you're
But
putting
how's
out-
it different than putting out a sign? It's just a very cute sign. How is it any different than a little sign in the ground, really?
Well,
It's no different than
hang on, though.
any other
Real
group
quick,
out
though.
there asking.
Real
to
quick,
be
in
permitted.
order to actually put a sign onto village property, you would have to receive a permit.
Yeah.
Except that when there's something like the block party and things like that.
No, you're actually
I know,
supposed
but it
to.
seems like, and with the roundup, and it seems like a lot of these things.
But those
they're-
come
they-
to
They do get
council.
overlooked.
No,
for
they're not.
the- you
Those
don't think
all come
so?
to council.
block party had a permanent.
To put the little signs in the ground?
There-
No, I know for the permit for the event, and the FCA does it for the event too, but for the little signs that are like I feel like for those kind of things, I feel like they get overlooked and it's not a big deal, personally.
If we're
When I
not-
saw the block parties all around the different businesses and on the library, things
But-
like that, I guess I don't see like why make a big deal about something like
Because-
this and you don't make a big deal about that.
The historic district, the historic committee is taking action, they're generating money from it, and they're doing it all over the village properties. Now, if it's on personal property, that's on their personal property, that's fine. But it's not okay to do this on your own, whenever you feel like it, and generally.
But if a
generally
black party
fine.
sign gets put up on
I'm not
village,
talking about the-
I'm just asking a
Now, let's not
question.
talk about the hypotheticals, let's not get.
I'm
dis-
asking-
Well, hang on,
it's
I-
appropriate
real
question.
quick.
I want
It's
to talk
appropriate.
about what's happening today. What's been happening is that the historic group decides for themselves to have this event around town, put these scarecrows up around town on their own and generate cash money through it. So that's just wrong. You should go through the application process like everybody else does.
And to the point of any of the other permitted activities and signs just generally on property, I do think that we should make an amendment to our permitting process that asks directly, will you have signs up? Because again, we had sign enforcement within the public right of ways during the election season, right? And it was, well, this is a political sign, so I'm gonna pull it. This is not a political sign, so I'm gonna leave it.
But I don't want to get distracted by that. That's a separate,
No,
that's a
I-
separate
but it-
I
conversation.
agree with you, David.
It is a
I
separate
really-
conversation, but my point is
But I want to
is
stick to this
that
conversation.
those, the block party, all of them did go through the permitting process. There is a distinction between what you're discussing and those other events, because they are seeking, like FCA Roundup, like the art, all of those came through the permitting process. And so I do think that there's a distinction that we as council had the opportunity to essentially make a decision. Are we okay? Are we approving this activity? Whereas what you're raising is, it never came to council for, do we actually permit this activity? So that's where I'm drawing the connection.
So
is
let me
they
ask
have
the
gone
question,
through
are
it.
you asking, can the crow to go, that was what wasn't, that's what you're asking for a permit for? When they were making the scarecrows at the Krieger house, is that what you're asking?
The
Or-
historic group has raised this as an event to generate funding. If
That's
people-
what but I'm
if people-
asking specifically, I'm
Can I
not,
finish?
sure.
So they went ahead, did this as they felt they wanted to do.
What do you mean did this? I mean, that's what I'm asking,
They-
be clear.
They started an event for scarecrows around the village, putting it on village properties, raising funding
So
through
you're
it.
talking about the decorations or the event itself? That's what I'm asking.
They are doing an event throughout this month with scarecrows around the village property, raising funding through it, never got permitted, never reviewed it with council. If they wanted to do it only on private property, that's great, but they're not permitted to do this around the village whenever they feel like it.
I disagree that it's an event that they're doing, they're putting the decorations up as advertisements for their crow to go. When
It's-
you look around the neck of each of the
It's not-
scarecrows, it is not, it is
It is
saying
100%
come,
an event. It is an event.
it's decorations, it
They're
is
not
not
allowed
an
to put
event.
decorations wherever they feel like it.
Well, hang on, what's around the neck?
Around the neck is a little, if you didn't look at any of the things around the necks of the scarecrows, it says, come to our, right, doesn't it say, come to our event?
were
We have an
signs
event at the
advertising
Krieger
event.
House, come make us a scarecrow and bring it to your home, and that's the event. This is the decoration that
So-
you're looking
so
at.
They're not
hang
allowed
on,
to
hang
put
on.
decorations
Can I
around the
just-
village whenever they
Again,
feel like it.
we can resolve this, but the point is that I think having it be an advertisement particularly supports your point more, right? Is that we're using village property to advertise an organization that hasn't come before us.
Exactly, and that's not right. There are lots of organizations who would love to use the Village of Franklin as their advertising means. Lots
And they
of them
can
would
do
love to.
that.
Well, they would come through an approval process though first.
That's what I'm saying.
And this
Correct.
is not
We have a
happening.
process for it.
People don't typically ask approval for the signs they put out for their events, like the Black Party or the FCA, or the Art on the Green. They ask to approval for the event itself. Now, I don't know if we have a Crow to Go event approval. And that's the only thing
The
that
bottom
I
line
think
is,
we should
Kathy,
be having.
Kathy, the bottom line is, they went ahead, put out 30, 40, 50 scarecrows all over the village on village properties asking to support their activity, and that's just wrong. There are lots of community groups who would love to use the Village of Franklin to generate support for their personal group.
I think you're
Lots of
harping
people.
on Bill, just to harp
I-
on Bill
I
again.
think-
It's just wrong, so.
I
we should-
think
we
you're
should be-
misinformed, Mark. But
That's
what do you
exactly
want?
what it
What's your point? What do you want to do?
Take them all off the village properties, keep them on personal properties, people who pay for them, that's
Okay,
fine.
we'll do that.
But all the ones that are on village
Okay.
properties should come off.
Very good.
Well, I've got
We'll make
another-
sure you get credit for knowing that, too.
Well, here's another
That's
option.
100% fine.
Right.
Here's another option, and
Can I get a scarecrow?
pardon? So,
$15
so
would
I'm,
be the kit.
I've got a request. One is that we not interrupt people. I would really appreciate it if we would wait till somebody takes a breath before you start talking. That's to all of us. Second, with regards to Mark's comments, I think that, the permitting process does a couple of things. It informs council about an event that's going on in the village. And to the extent that making scarecrows and posting them around the village is an event, it's either an event or it's signage, depending on this conversation. I don't know which one it is. But I think that there's an advantage to council and the police and the village office knowing what's going on in the village. To me, that's the compelling reason. So therefore, I would suggest that I would recommend that the sponsors of those scarecrows just do a permit like other events. That makes sense to me. I also like your suggestion, Mark, David, which is, if we don't have it already, let's include provision for, are you going to have signs on the event permit? Let's just amend
In
that.
advance, right? Because
Yeah.
advertisement in advance is what we're talking about.
Yeah, we can put the general dates, right? Like, they can put when
Yeah.
they're gonna have signs.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty easy thing to do.
Historical Society doesn't need a permit to host an event at their own place. The issue is placement of anything on village property. The scarecrows are the equivalent of a sign. The comparison of, well, the FCA does it at Roundup and we do it for, that is true, that does go on. Probably the only distinction between the two is that the signs you're talking about, Kathy, usually go up for the weekend advertising it and then come down, they don't stay up the length. I can tell you that historically, Bill, in the past, the Historical Society has come and asked council, can we put our scarecrows up on the street corner signs? And it was approved. You're saying clearly over the last couple of years that has evolved into, oh, well, that approval must have just been an approval for all time and we can just now do that regularly. So in theory, the only thing that would need to be requested is for the Historical Society to say, hey, council, can we use the street signs, which are in public property, to hang our scarecrows, which are, in addition to being festive for Halloween, advertising some event. And that's the only thing that needs to be done, is the signage. And in theory, yes, the FCA, when they're advertising Roundup, and I don't know whoever it is that sponsors the art in the green, or when we were having the farmer's market, theoretically needed to ask for those too, but since the scarecrows are a little more permanent, I mean, they're probably gonna be there for a whole month or so, that was the only distinction that has been done in the past, but they do not need permission to have an event at their property.
Okay.
So what's the resolution?
They should make a permit to ask for permission retroactively to put the scarecrows up.
They should take down the scarecrows that are
I
on
don't know
public
if
land.
that's seconded, but I'm not gonna advocate necessarily that, they should just,
We can do the permit now, we could do the permit today, and we could have it, that way, could take it down, it's unnecessary, it's disrespectful, and it's really cute to see around town. So many
That's
people
your
see,
opinion.
people taking
That is
pictures
your
with their
opinion.
children. So many people love it so much, so I think you can let that one slide.
I think they should file a application and we'll look at it next council.
Okay, but we can leave it up in the meanwhile.
No, they need to come down.
So what's your pleasure, council? What do you want to do?
you know, there's nothing on the table.
Nothing to do.
I move that they need to be removed until they follow the process.
Is there a second? So I will get an application filed retroactively. So. Okay,
Okay.
any other council report issues?
Yep. All right. First, I'd like to thank the library for hosting the wonderful Oktoberfest. It was an incredible event. Though the weather was not as cooperative as it could have been, it was great to see so many people and for the community to come together for an extremely fun event like that. Second, I'd like to take a moment to recognize today as Indigenous Peoples Day. It is a day to honor and commemorate the rich legacies and cultures of the many indigenous nations, as well as the painful history that they have endured. For those who don't know, I had an opportunity to help us start a nonprofit on the Crow Creek Reservation, sit on the legislative committee for the South Dakota Indian Business Alliance, helped build out the Department of Tribal Relations for the state of South Dakota, and eventually worked for HUD on numerous indigenous issues. Through that time, I had an opportunity to learn from many incredible mentors, including Jerome Kilsmall, Rhonda Hawk, J.R. LaPlante, and Dr. Elizabeth Castle, just to name a few. Through that time, I had the opportunity to be introduced to many unique and proud cultures and communities, and to recognize that these peoples are not a word, a name, or an imagery, but a sovereign domestic dependent nation made up of individuals who continue to honor their heritage and culture while finding reconciliation with historical and recent traumas to their people and communities. I want to thank the many nations for welcoming me to not only your community, but exposing me to your culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other
Yeah.
council?
First of all, I was gonna make a comment, but I knew that based on your history that you would probably be saying something today. I would like to give my thoughts and prayers to those Israelis, Americans, and citizens of the other countries that have been and continue to be killed, tortured, abused, and otherwise injured in the unprovoked attacks on Israel and its population. Acts of terrorism like this, particularly on defenseless individuals, have no place in our world and need to be quashed immediately. And then on a little more happier note, I wanted to make a comment. Pam, I've been I've been recognizing this, but I've seemed to kind of notice maybe the last month or so, but the landscaping improvements on Main Street, on Franklin Road, now that we're like 2 years into growth, really look amazing. The growth is full. The lavenders look amazing. The plants look amazing. Johnson has done a very good job maintaining it. I don't see a lot of areas where, traffic and other things have injured it. We get a lot of road activity near the post office and very even little damage there, but 2 years out, it looks really good.
Kathy had sent me a note a couple months ago saying the same thing, and I think I asked you to talk to Tracy, let Jerry and Tracy Bry know.
Yeah, they're doing
They
a
are-
wonderful
They are
job.
really, she's a really good landscape architect, and I think the plant selection was perfect, and I noticed it as well. They were planted for dry conditions, and I think it looks really good. Yeah. And I noticed, the homes along Franklin Road, a couple of the homeowners, have planted flowers around their mailboxes, a
Yep,
couple of
they've
other
taken
ones do
ownership.
not.
Yep.
But I think generally the village is looking pretty tidy, and I've also noticed that there's no trash around. I'm really happy about that, so people, I think, are taken care of. But let Jerry know what a great
Please do.
job they're doing.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Freedom helps with that, too.
Oh, yeah, she does.
David, thank you for bringing up, I just drove through today about 4 o'clock. I drove north on Franklin Road, that whole stretch there. I was thinking the same thought, so thank
Looks
you
good.
for bringing it up. And I remember 2 years ago,
Yeah.
we were having this conversation, and making the comment that you're gonna be 100% vindicated and thanks for all the effort you put into this. And the village is gonna look at this and like, thank you so much. There's gonna be no doubt it's gonna be the right thing to do, so.
It
thank
looks
you for
really
bringing it
good.
up.
It looks good.
And that's, through your efforts.
Thanks.
Okay, any other council? Okay, Roger, administrative report?
Several things I just want to comment on. One is that we've had sort of a surge in activity about trees and trees being removed or trees dying. And just this last weekend, we had an issue on Bowden between German Mill and Carroll, where one of the trees that is within the right-of-way on the east side of Bowden was losing limbs. And that, we had some conversations with the neighbors last week about how to deal with that. There was uniform support amongst the neighbors to take the tree out. That was done yesterday and today. There is a stump that's about 18 to 24 inches tall that's still there, and at the moment, we don't have a plan to take that out. Jerry doesn't have a grinder. We can pay to get that done, but for the time being, my intent is to leave it. There are recurringly folks asking about trees that are actually on their property but overhang the street. And I'm a little befuddled in terms of how to deal with that in terms of our policies. Because some of them are concerned that those branches that are 30 and 40 feet up may be getting weak enough that they could fall at any point. And the question is, what should we or the homeowner do, the village or the homeowner do, about those trees and limbs that are, the tree itself doesn't appear to be a problem, but some of the branches do. And I'm looking for some suggestions from you as to how you'd like to see us handle that. Because our policies aren't crystal clear on how that works. It's clear that we're supposed to deal with stuff that's in the right of way. But here's stuff that grows in private property, but grows over the drive and may therefore create a risk to people driving.
A good example, I think, is across from the cemetery, I think there's a large tree with a branch that's over,
Right.
that I saw.
Right.
And I'm like, what are we gonna do about that? Just sitting there,
Is
just
it
waiting to
dead?
fall. That branch is
Yeah.
dead, yeah.
I-
But it hasn't fallen.
I think with public safety, even though it's not, I think we get permission from the homeowner, and I think it's gonna fall, and at some point it's gonna fall on the road, someone's gonna hit it, or get hit by it, so I think for public safety, I think we should ask for permission, and I'm okay paying for it, I guess. I don't know what else, it's gonna fall on the road, then it's our problem.
And then it's ours, right, and then we're dealing. So, yeah, for me, if there's also one near my house that I'm thinking of, that's on Franklin Road. And to me, if it's gonna land in the road or it's over the road, then I think so. If it's on the property, I'm less inclined, and just kind of, we'll see where it ends
Sure, who
up.
cares if
But-
it's on the
but-
property,
Right.
right?
If there's a risk for public safety, and
Yeah.
it's pretty obvious it's dead.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying the road,
Just
right?
ask the property owner for permission, and take care of it.
Yeah.
I'm generally an advocate of, if somebody owns a tree, they need to take care of it. And in the case of a cemetery tree, I would go to the cemetery board and say, your tree has got a dead branch, it's hanging over the road. Can you call the arborist and have the branch removed? Why does the village have to take responsibility for a tree that's on private property?
I think the answer to that is because then they do nothing and then it falls. And
But
then,
have we asked them? I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, you're good. I'm not, in no way offended, Pam. No, I was pretty much done with my thought, but,
I knew that.
in response to have we asked them, I mean, we certainly can ask them, that's fine, but,
Yeah.
again, ultimately, we have no power for what they do until the branch falls.
Well, I think that's part of life. I think we should ask the property owner to maintain the tree. And if the tree starts looking like it's going to come down, and there's a long time between a dead branch or a bare branch and falling on the ground. I don't know what to do about that risk. I don't think we can remove all risk. But I don't want to start a precedent of the village seeing a dead branch on a tree and assuming that it's the village's job to trim trees. I think we need to take care of the trees in the right-of-way. We agreed to do that. We have an agreement, and that'll expire next year, I believe, Roger, right? To look after the trees on the Franklin Road, because we wanted them made.
Washington Planning?
Yeah, yeah.
That's a different.
And many of those are on private property, but I'm having some heartburn about,
Yeah, I get it.
you know, doing that. I am. I just think it sets a precedent that I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
I'm a little hesitant for the same reason. Where does it stop? And where do I say, hey, I'm not gonna do this, I'll just call the village, let them handle it?
Now, if we wanted a village-wide tree project and all of us felt strongly enough about it, that we're willing to allocate $10,000 or $20,000 of village money to go around and trim trees, then if it's a council decision, I probably won't fight it, but I would certainly raise a concern about what's the limits between our municipal responsibility and that of the private property owner.
Well, and that's the gray line why Roger brought it up,
Yeah.
right? So, but if there's a risk to it, you know, there certainly can be the case of the resident, they just can't afford it, they don't have $5,000 to pay a crew to come out there and do it. And it looks healthy to me, I'm fine. I said, you know, he's fine, he or she's fine, until it falls in the road.
We do have a practice of picking up branches when they do fall.
Indeed, they do.
And they take them away and they do a good job. They don't just shove them over to the side of the road like a lot of cities do.
Or GTE.
Or
Yeah,
DT,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm looking for guidance.
So we
from
haven't given,
council.
yeah, we haven't given Roger any direction here, would it?
Do we notify the person who owns the property and say, hey, you've got this branch we've identified as a danger, we request that you do something about it? And then we
Who says
decide
it's a
after
danger?
that.
Who's decided it's a danger?
Well,
they-
that's a good point.
Has our
That's a good
arborists or
point.
they
That's a
have?
good point.
We get it in different ways. We've had property owners contact us and ask us to take the limb on a tree that they acknowledge is theirs. We've had stuff that we've seen that has been clearly our tree because it's in the right of way. And we let folks know what we're going to do, but we take care of that. In an increasing number of cases, we're getting these kind of circumstances where either our code person or an individual has recognized that there's potential danger, and they ask us to take care of it, even if it's not in the village right of way technically.
And it would seem that we should continue with our current practice, which is if it's our tree and it falls, we fix it. If it's someone else's tree, but it falls in our right of way, then we clean it up. And as far as private residents who have trees that are on their property that go over the right of way, shouldn't be our place unless we're going and doing, like Pam said, a village-wide
Doing it.
task to go and just go and help that individual because they chose to ask. If it's truly a danger and you can see the thing tinkering and it's gonna potentially fall on someone's head, it's a different issue, but again, it still falls back on them.
It's policy interpretation that I'm asking for guidance.
I think the answer is no. I think that's what most of us, I mean, we haven't voted, but
Does this give you what you want?
Well, are you as a group okay with that summary?
I support what David
Yeah.
said.
I guess the question is, has somebody specifically requested for permission to spend village funds to cut down? You're asking for a specific tree or a general statement on trees in general?
The latter.
Okay.
It's almost a case-by-case thing,
No, I
I
understand,
think.
it's gonna depend on where the tree is.
Right.
And I'm trying to make that distinction, that there are trees that are clearly based, rooted in the right of way.
Right,
That's our responsibility.
That's
That's
period.
ours.
no
That's not a
question.
question.
Right.
What's question is trees that are outside of the right of way that are creating a problem over the road.
They're not
And
our responsibility unless they fall on our
I
property.
think that's what we're saying, is
That's fine.
it's not our,
I just wanna make
not
sure
our
that
responsibility, right,
I can live with that.
right.
Is it our responsibility, though, to identify to the public, to the owner, we've identified this tree looks suspicious?
Yeah.
And we're requesting or suggesting, or at least, because maybe people don't even notice. And if, but,
And that's what our code guy helps us.
Right.
oh, okay,
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
notify the owner, so.
If I may,
Quickie here, Rick. Yeah.
Rick David, some municipalities will have issues like this, a tree or overgrown grass, and they'll notify the homeowner. They have a responsibility, and they have 7 days to take care of it. If they don't, the village will come in and do it and charge them for it and put on their taxes.
That's our practice with lawns now.
That's, I'm aware of that, so can that be applied to this situation also?
Could be.
It could.
Good point.
If it's deemed to be a danger to the health, safety, and welfare because it's clearly a dangerous condition, that's one thing. Just, you know, because we want to tell someone trim your tree, no, I don't think we really can.
Stuart Wooders, Franklin Park Drive. I was, just one question. I mean, if my neighbor has a tree that's, their branch is hanging over my property and it's dead,
That's an issue between you and your neighbor.
yeah, so how is that a different conversation? How's that conversation different?
It's not, it's the same. And if their stuff falls on your lawn, then you're.
You have to clean it up.
You have to clean up on your lawn, and it's their tree to deal with it, but the whole thing needs to come down. It's the same exact it's
So
the same
if a tree
situation.
does fall and break something on another person's property, but it's your tree and your tree hits something on my property, it's their responsibility to fix my, pay
That's
for
a
my-
legal question.
Is it considered an act of God or is it considered
Negligence.
negligence, right?
I think that's a neighbor-to-neighbor
It's a
issue.
neighbor-to-neighbor issue too. Okay.
I have one other item.
Yes, sir.
Last week, we had an opportunity to meet with a gentleman that was referred to us by Robert White regarding the pedestrian level lighting that's along the sidewalks. We have 6 of those fixtures. 2 of them are gone because they've
Like
been broken
gone?
off and we don't know where they are.
Are you talking about the short ones?
The short ones, they're actually 21 inches off the ground. But 2 of them are in really firm shape and in good stead, and 2 are wobbly and need to have some work done on them. What we found is that all of the lighting circuits are essentially, it's more complex than this, but essentially they're all on one fuse. And when one of those pedestrian lights is broken off, it tends to short. And that's one of the reasons we've had difficulty with the lighting system. So there's 2 things that we're working on. I just want to.
I'm happy you're doing this because I had it on my notes to ask you about it.
We're going, at the moment, we're seeking replacement of the same style and of fixture, but we're trying to make sure that they're more stably and more logically located, as particularly 2 of them are problematic. So I just want to bring you up to date that we've had that process this last week. The gentleman that worked with us knows what he's doing, so we're glad about that. But if we wind up having to make some purchases, we'll let you know.
Is another option just to not replace them and just nix them?
That's a decision for the council. My obligation, as I understand it, is to maintain what we bought.
Except if it's in a bad spot and it keeps getting hit by a car or it keeps
Right.
getting damaged,
Well,
why
and what's
not?
happening in a couple of spots is that the lawnmowers are beating them up.
Right.
So, that's all. I'm done.
I have a question.
I don't have the answer.
Well, you did mention that,
Very good.
that all of the lights were on one circuit.
Yes,
Is
that's part
that
of
being
the-
addressed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Stuart?
Quick
Planning
comments
commission?
on the tree issue. So we have a right up to the property line to go ahead and trim trees.
I have a right to do that.
Right, up to the property line.
Right.
Now, if we give it authority, then we can do whatever's needed. Now, if a dead tree or a tree that causes damage from a property owner, they could be liable if they knew or should have known that it was rotting and it could cause damage to your neighbor. We can jump real quick to the other topic and sort of explain that.
So what happens if it's on the village property line and causes damage to your home and the village hasn't taken care of it for the number of years they've been notified about it?
I represent the village.
Right,
We're going to be liable. It's the right.
Get your own lawyer.
just curious.
Stuart, go ahead.
All right, sorry about that. Just a quick question follow-up. Planning Commission report. So this last month, we had the opportunity to have 2 new commissioners join. And because of that, we pushed off some of the activities that were on our agenda to this month, to giving them time to catch up. For example, the ranking planning priorities, as well as getting familiar with the master plan goals and objectives. So those activities, we did not go over those items last month, but we look forward to discussing them next week. We also received some information from the council with regards to the lighting ordinance, which we're also giving those new commissioners a chance to review and be able to also provide their input. The one thing that we did take a significant amount of time on, which I thought was very interesting for those that attended, at least it was interesting to me, was regards to the Pickering barn. We had an architect that came out who is used to doing this in the Northeast area and has managed to move many barns in Wisconsin, Michigan area, as well as some in the Northeast, and went over some ideas of cost and gave us a presentation. I believe they sent the presentation material to you from after that meeting, so that people can look at it and look at the presentation material. But specifically, he discussed what would it take for us to move and what should we move as far as the Pickering barn is concerned. So those are the things that we're looking at. We have this month and then I believe our last 30 days for the next meeting to discuss this. At that point, we may ask next month for an extension if we feel like that's the right thing for us to do, but just giving you a heads up on that.
Question.
Yes.
How big is the Pickering barn, size-wise? What length and width?
Length and width, I believe it's 40 feet by 20-something feet, or.
It might be half.
30 by 70.
But part of it isn't. He didn't recommend moving, right?
Well, sort of.
It's 35.
Well,
Yeah.
the brick part.
Huh?
35, 40, the party says should be moved.
Yeah, 35 by 40.
That's the part that is clear, that can move easily, and then the additional 40 feet requires a little more investigation, which we plan on doing.
35 by 40. Thank you.
Right. Yeah. So it's not the whole barn that you see above ground. There's an addition that was made that makes the L, and that portion he's not convinced that it's worth moving because of the upgrades that were done to it early on. They're not sure what's behind the drywall or plaster that was put in. It's a little bit harder to restore to an original state after some of that work has been done. But the area, the 30 by 40 that he did recommend, you can take it down in a week or so and then store it for a couple of years if we need to. So that was another interesting thing, is the people that take it down, they store it in Ohio, they protect it, make sure that, and he says it can sit there for a decade without doing anything with it. If we're willing to spend the money to store it and take it down, we can decide what to do with it and place it at a later date.
Has the group started looking at locations?
We have, and we started reviewing locations last week. We'll present some locations to the council when we finalize. We had a few ideas that came about. We wanted to discuss it with further as a commission before we present them.
Thank you.
Real quick question. And this is probably for us as well. At the last meeting, we talked about the master plan and having a open forum for it, a public forum for it. And was the intention for us to hold one or for the planning commission to hold one? Because this goes back to, again, people are interested in providing their feedback around the goals and objectives to the community, and I think we need to be as clear as possible about where they should be providing it. Obviously, I know the planning commission is always an avenue for them to do that, but if they want to present their thoughts directly to the council, is that something that we had intended to do?
Don't all speak at once.
I thought the conversation was to have a community meeting that was hosted by the council.
That's what I thought.
But I
as
think
well.
it's a little vague. I think you were right in bringing it up. It would
Yeah.
be co-hosted. The planning commission owns that document right now.
Right,
So they're key to
yeah.
a meeting like that, in my view.
Yeah, I would like for us to hold something for it outside of just the planning commission meeting, right? I thought that was kind of our intent, and I just didn't want it to kind of, planning commission goes through their process, and then for us to say, well, that satisfied what we had talked about, when I don't think it really did.
So just as a follow-up question with regards to that, then, it is on our agenda to review it and discuss it, goals and objectives this next week. Not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. Are you recommending that we withhold any discussions on it until we have the public?
No. I just, if you all want to have a discussion on it, I'm perfectly fine with that. I just want to make sure that we're kind of holding to what we intended last week, which was to have like a workshop or something similar to that for the community to attend.
So what level of completion would you like our discussions to be at before we hold something like that? Or should we put something on the books now with the intent of presenting what we have so far?
I'd be personally comfortable with you holding a meeting like that anytime.
Okay.
Because I think you're quite a long ways into it. And,
Okay.
yeah.
A separate meeting or part of your normal meeting?
I mean, the public is welcome to our meetings anytime they come. And so I don't know what the limitation is. Every person has a different limitation as to why they don't come to the planning commission meeting. I know before, I mean, so I'm not sure what would be a better time or and venue that would make sense. We don't usually have
Right.
standing room only at our meetings, so, you know.
So, David, are you okay with combining it with a,
Yeah, I'm fine to combine it with it so long as we as a council, and Roger, I'm looking to the staff to promote it as such. Like I want to make sure that it's not just being promoted like your standard planning commission meeting, but we're actually.
Well, we haven't had very much attendance with regards to public hearings either. And those are announced in newspapers and much more widely presented.
And they're expensive.
And those are expensive. So we would have to have a public hearing anyway at some point. But at the same time, I'm not sure what venue or recommendation, because this is the question I asked them as well. How do we get people to come even to a public hearing and it impacts their property? And then they don't show up, then they come to your meeting and they say, this is the first I've heard of a public quasi zone. And we've been discussing it for months and had a public hearing on it. So anyway, I see your point. I agree. I would love it. One of my personal goals is to have more people come to planning commission meetings, because I got involved because I was tired of being surprised. And the only way I realized I could not be surprised is to participate. So.
Yeah, I mean, this may be something that we just take offline, but I think if we do a reprioritization of the space, when we do the village emails, when we have the week before the planning commission, like one of the top items should be subjects that are to be discussed, right? That way the community's not, losing interest on the way down to that stuff.
And in bigger font too, if you would make it, like, it's so little. It's hard to see and be as, you don't notice things so much. If they're bolded in bigger font, it would be nice, something different.
so where do we leave the issue of a separate meeting? What are we gonna do?
Then I think, and it's not this week, it's gonna be the following week.
That's right. It's the third Wednesday.
Third
The
Wednesday.
18th.
So plan on part of your
So-
meeting having a,
Right now, my intention would be to hold it at the regular planning commission meeting time, unless council wants to sponsor another. I mean, it does cost us money to have other meetings outside that time as well.
Are
But
you inviting us to come?
all of you are welcome. Anyone from the village is welcome to come to planning commission. Trustees as well. That includes you.
so we'll leave it in your capable hands.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Any
All right,
other?
thanks for the clarity.
okay.
The only other thing I have to say is that it was, and I think Pam would agree, that this architect was great.
Oh, I wanted to
really
say that,
gave
yeah.
us a real taste of what is possible. And I would recommend that every single person on this council take a look at watch his.
I strongly support what you're saying.
Okay.
In fact, we should retain him as a consultant when we're ready to get serious about any of the barns in the village. He really knows his stuff. I was so impressed.
Yeah.
And
So just as a shout out.
really good.
Pete has been excited about this project for a long time, but it's because he also knows the architect that he's getting excited, and I'm grateful that he was able to bring it to our attention to share that opportunity with us. So if you have a chance to the public, watch the planning commission video on that. It's really interesting. But yeah, Pete brought him forward to us, and kudos for finding him and sharing that information with us.
Cool. Sounds like a neat project.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks, Dirk. Okay, Main Street, is there a Main Street Franklin report? Susan Goldstrom.
Good evening. So we are planning our Franklinstein Frenzy. Mark, we hope you're going to be Franklinstein.
I did get the email
He's
about
good
that.
at it.
Okay. That's going to be October 28th, starting at 11:45 is the parade lineup at Comerica. We're going to be going up to Event Bliss. Then there'll be trick-or-treating downtown, and the cider mill is going to be over by the library this year. So you guys should stop by there. 11:45 will be the start of the parade.
That's when they line up at the.
And we do have signs that we usually spread out throughout the village, so I hope that's okay. I need to make sure that's good. So, but we've already had our permit approved, so. I stand for any questions. Yes, ma'am?
Question that's a non-event question.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you would update the council on the position of executive director of Main Street.
So right now I agreed to take that on, so that's going to be not interim anymore. That will be my position.
Will you not be doing your other position?
We'll be doing piecemeal of that. We're still working through all of that. So,
We're doing an inventory, frankly, of what each one of the folks
Right.
in our office is currently doing or capable of. And out of that, there will be some funds that we can use to hire perhaps a part-time person to come in and focus on particular areas of responsibility, and we may wind up shuffling assignments a little bit. So it has potential for impacting, maybe benefiting others in the office besides Susan. But we as a group are going to spend some time deciphering how this works.
Interesting in how the financial reporting and all that fits into these discussions. Okay.
So Susan, I did get the ask to be Franklinstein again. Happy to do that. Angie started that process. She's
Yeah.
Franklin.
Yeah.
Not convinced my 17-year-old to take her part though, to be the bride of Frankenstein, so.
Okay.
But, so,
well, we can find a bride or something if we need to. But, all right.
Well, no,
Yeah, I'll advertise for a bride.
Bride of Frankenstein.
yeah.
And so,
All right.
I tried to get her, it was suggested in the letter that Sophia could take her role.
Yeah.
But
Sophia doesn't want
I could
anything to
not
do with
pull
it.
her leg enough to do it. so.
Well, we'll find somebody. So, all right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Pathways, anything to say on the Pathway Committee?
No,
This
no,
time.
we got the information, all the previous findings and reports from the planning commission that were delivered to Dana. I wanna make sure that we get a digital copy before I take them into my possession, just so that we know that we have a record for the village. And then from there, I'll review and then, also circulate that with anybody else who wants to look at it, Mark, you as well. And then we can start the game plan path forward. But I just want to know what work's been done first.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of public hearings. The first, there's an ordinance to amend the zoning map to include properties in the public institutional zoning district. And those properties are the Franklin Community Church, FCA properties, Huda School, Franklin Cemetery, and the Franklin Sledding Hill. So with that, I'd like to open a public hearing regarding public institutional zoning of the 5 properties I just mentioned. I guess we don't have a lot of participation, so we can close the hearing. and move-
So, I don't, did the church, the Huda School, and the cemetery get the notice that we had asked last meeting for you guys to send them about this meeting?
Yes, notices were sent out.
To each
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
Was it via mail?
Yes.
Data can answer that.
Yes.
She did.
yeah, okay, because
And you haven't heard anything back from anyone in
From Huda
complaints?
School.
The
Really,
Huda
Huda
School
School.
in particular, right?
If I recall, the Huda School, they were not ready to make a decision
Correct.
at the time.
And they said they'd come back and let us know.
in 2 months. Okay, thanks, Dan.
Okay, so let's close that public hearing, and we have a second public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant Funding for 2024. So I'd like to open that hearing. Any comments? Okay, with that, we'll close that hearing and move on to old business. First is the Community Block Development Grant Funding Plan for 2024. Roger, do you have a history on what did we do last year and what,
Last year, what we did was, we did the youth organization, because it was determined that we already provide the seniors with, an endowment every year. So it was decided to be given to the children this last year.
okay,
And last year, we had the youth, the Birmingham youth,
Haven?
Haven,
And
And
and,
we did get a communication from Haven.
so yeah, so who has requested this year, I guess? Who are
Those
the
are the same.
same three?
Yes.
I would move to repeat what we did last year then?
Would we do, to Birmingham Youth Assistance?
Birmingham Youth Assistance.
I recall she, the lady who came for Birmingham Youth, she made a very clear case of why it was needed, and I was moved by that. So I think we split it between the two of them.
I'm gonna, did you make a motion?
I move to repeat the same funding we did last year.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Let's have the discussion.
I am a council liaison in the winter, when Mike is in Arizona, to the next board as the Franklin liaison. And I'm gonna, I've really changed my mind about next. Because of my involvement on that board, and I'm gonna recommend that we allocate part of our, at least part, if not all of our CDBG money to the next organization. Financially, they're healthy. However, the organization has signed a contract to move into the YMCA building in Birmingham on Lincoln, and they've got a 3-year transition period. So they have to be out of the Birmingham Public Schools by the 2026 school year. And there's some considerable expenses that is going to be required to remodel that building. Birmingham does have a millage on the ballot in November, so they are asking for tax money from Birmingham. I think that we do give them $10,000 every year, and I think that and I also recognize that we have a relatively small percentage of Franklin residents that are actually members of Next. All that said, I would advocate at least half of the allocation to, if we can split it, because we've done that before, to the Next organization, to just because I think the mission and the way they do, it's a really fine organization, and they do a good job with what they do.
Can I get clarification, just make sure I'm clear? How much we currently fund Next already? What is that number? Is it 10? I thought maybe 20?
$10,000.
10,000?
It's a budget line item, and
Yeah,
it has been for
I
about
recall.
4 years.
Yeah, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure it was 10. And then what is the CBG amount? Is it 15?
7,000.
7,000.
And
So-
isn't it extra work to split between two things significantly
The
extra?
there's no more than two. It's too complicated to divide it any more than two.
Okay.
And I'm strongly of the position, I'd rather it just go to the Birmingham youth. I think that we need to represent both demographics, and I think that with the allocation of 10,000 already to Next, that I see it fit to show, well, as not much support, still allocate them the resources.
I would amend my motion to put it all to Birmingham Youth. I mean, I still recall clearly the presentation she made about the number of youths that they've been able to help to turn around. And 7K is not much necessarily.
Right.
And
I can
guess-
support that.
I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
What is the number of Franklin residents that we are, that they're supporting?
I don't have an accurate number.
I think in terms of dues paying members, it's about 75. There are also another 15 or 20 that take advantage of next programs that aren't members, so roughly 100 people in Franklin.
That participate in classrooms there? Or,
The 75 would participate in classes, the others would be either Meals on Wheels or some sort of referral.
yeah, but the classroom, people taking classes, they pay for the classes.
It's a membership.
Some are free, some are not.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a membership.
Yeah.
And then the class fee is on top of that.
Yeah, okay.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
Some people just go play pickleball there too.
right.
There's plenty of people who do
Right.
that too, that they don't know that they pay a membership, but. My question is, I think it makes sense to me to, we already are supporting Next, I think the community has money. But I wonder, why aren't we choosing Haven once in a while? Haven
gonna
needs
bring
money
that up.
too,
Yeah.
and maybe once every, why don't we, if it's the same three all the time, why don't we have some kind of a plan? We've got 4 years, every 4 years, maybe we do Next 1 year, and then we do maybe the children 2 years and Haven 1 year. And if we have a plan, we don't have to discuss this every time. It makes it
I
so
like their
easy.
idea. That, well, we're telling future council what to do though,
Well,
so.
Yeah, I was just gonna.
we don't have to agree to it, but we could say this is what we have decided and then
But,
choose to do it
but
again.
I think it's, so 7K is only 7K. Haven, I know them personally, a good friend of mine she goes and treats the victims in the middle of the night shooting, so, I should know about that. I'd be okay rotating, and it's only 7K, if you wanted to say 1 year Haven, one year youth, that's fine.
I'd support Haven.
Yeah, they're three great organizations, no question. It's-
Yeah, they're all
it's just-
deserving, I mean,
yeah.
you can't knock
The
that.
Haven woman gave a nice presentation last time too.
Yeah.
I mean, both groups could use the money.
So we
I
split-
like the rotating idea, that's,
Yeah, so last year we split, is that correct?
No.
It was,
All year before we do organization.
Last year went all the youth,
yeah.
so then,
Can you reamend?
I'll move that we all give it to Haven this year.
I'm good.
Second.
I was the second, so I'm fine with that.
So we have a motion and a second to give the entire grant to Haven. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, the only thing that I would advocate, that I wish that we had at least one representative here. Because to me, I just wonder from the ebbs and flows that, nonprofits go through in raising funds, if it works better to do this constant pendulum of back and forth funding, or for every year we just split.
That's the
Well,
other
if,
issue, is just make it's more work, but yeah, we could just split it every year.
For predictability, if they know that every other year they're getting 7K, they know that, hey, every odd year I get it, every even year they get it. Something like that.
The director from Next wanted to be here tonight. Her son is in town for just today, and she called me, and we agree that being with her son is pretty significant, so that's where she is. And otherwise, she would be here. She did send a letter, which I thought was distributed, but it doesn't sound like you guys have it,
So we've got a motion and a second for funding.
for Haven, yeah. Any further discussion? Do we need a roll call vote? Why don't we do that, just to make sure?
Okay. Trustee Hanky,
Yes.
trustee Hanson,
Yes, Haven.
President Lamont,
Yes.
trustee Ehrlich,
Yes.
trustee Goldberg,
Yes.
trustee Solly.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next item, Village Property Status Report. David Goldberg, you want to walk us through that? Or is that Peter?
Yeah,
Okay.
when we last met, there were 3 properties at issue, it was the library, the ball fields, and the village hall. We had discussions with the property, part of the title company, and as far as ownership, we're on the same page. Franklin owns the library parcel, obviously village hall, and Franklin Community owns the ball fields. There were a couple parcels or lots included that were not included in certain deeds for both the library and Franklin Village Hall. Lot 195 was not included in the library. The title company acknowledged that and prepared an affidavit saying that it would basically ensure, even though no one's going to be selling the property, that lot 195 should be included in the library. That's part of the packet there. Jumping to Village Hall, there were about 7 lots that were not included in the deed going back, 60 years ago on this land contract, and those are lots 171 through 178. Title company acknowledged that and included an affidavit resolving that issue, hopefully once and for all.
Right.
I feel pretty confident. The only other remaining item is lot 78, maybe Dave can help us out, but right now, it is included in the part of that village of Franklin owns it, and it's part of our tax parcel ID where it should go to Franklin Community Association.
Right.
The title company said that's sort of out of our hands, that's more the tax assessor, so I'm preparing the letter, I'll have David review it and submit it to Oakland County Assessor to see if we can find a way to move it from Village of Franklin to Franklin Community Association. So I think it'll be resolved.
The only issue will be if we give them enough information and being that they're not paying tax parcels, whether they will just effectuate that or whether they could make us go through the formal process of like, it's really not a land division, but it would be like a boundary adjustment and have to do an adjustment on the parcel tax. I would hope that they're like real easy about it, but we could have to have one more step other than your letter to deal with that. But that's really just cleaning up a tax bill for tax parcels that people, neither entity actually pays taxes on.
Yeah, I think this will clean it up. I was saying David Goldberg, who sort of spearheaded it, I think the network contacting the credit company, but I think after this is done, it will be resolved and we'll think about it.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all on the same page that the conclusion is the lot 78, which was the last one in question, is owned by the FCA, and they do own 75, 76, and 77 as well.
So a motion for Bill to execute those affidavits, having them notarized, submitted to the title company is appropriate. And,
Yeah, those affidavits will just go in the public record. They might not per se clean up title in other than the parcels really never will be sold. So there really should never be a reason to buy anyone title insurance. If that day were to ever come along, then yes, another step could be done, but this is just putting into the chain of title the fact that we as owners of the property never got a deed. And since we're 50 years beyond the date when the land contract was satisfied, I think it's pretty safe to say that no one will come and challenge that at a future time. So it's the appropriate thing to do, and there isn't much we have to do anymore, again, unless we ever try and sell the village land.
it's good to clean up.
Yeah, for sure.
So Peter, I thought I heard you ask for a motion?
Yeah, so I'll move that we authorize President Lamont to sign the two affidavits confirming title, one with regard to lots 1570168 and lots 184 to 195, and the other with regard to lots 171 to 177 and the north half of lot 78 as presented.
The north.
Is there a second? Oh,
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Lot 78 got sold in two pieces.
very good.
Okay.
No question any longer. Very good. Anything else on that one, David? Okay.
No, I mean, the tax
Peter?
parcels do line up with each of the parcels, so it's
Yeah.
good. It's just that one lot 78 was just floating out there, and this will fix
Well,
that.
it's sort of going to put a multi-year discussion to bed. I really like that.
I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to an agreed upon map.
Yeah,
No debate. Okay,
right.
item C, first reading of public institutional zoning for the Franklin Community Church, FCA Properties, Huda School, Franklin Cemetery, and the Franklin Sledding Hill. Dana, do you want to change that F, or number 5 to sledding rather than slaying?
Yes.
But historically, it used to be considered the skiing hill, just so everyone knows,
Skiing
and there was a tow
There was a
rope
tow rope.
on it.
There
I
you
was
see
on
that?
that tow rope as a kid.
Okay,
Sledding hill, yeah.
so we need a motion to
No, it was electric.
I move.
have the first reading on these 5 properties.
I move.
Okay, second?
A second.
Any discussion? All in favor of?
Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold
Oh,
on.
discussion.
So,
Well, hurry up.
yeah. So we never heard anything officially from the Huda School, all right?
Now remember,
And the FCA is now
You're okay.
okay with this, now that we've cleaned up the ownership for them? Okay, all right,
Okay.
that's want to make sure, okay.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, we got public institution zoning on 5 properties now. At first reading. Now,
So, Bill, I would just ask that, this is just the first reading, next month will be second.
Yeah,
We
let's
can
give Huda School
reach-
one more, yeah, one more
reach out again to
Well,
Huda.
technically, next month should be a public hearing for this, and then the second reading.
Okay, but I would, let's reach out again, to let
Yes,
them know.
definitely.
The gears are already turning, they've not responded.
okay.
We just had.
Okay, so the second reading on item D for the village office, Krieger House and Barn, the police department, the library, the village green adjacent to the library, the historical museum and adjoining property, Bowden Road property. Do we have a motion to approve including those as public institutional zoning in the second reading?
So moved?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Kathy? Any discussion? No discussion? All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Issue resolved. New business. Consider proclamation for Lieutenant Michael Bastinelli's retirement.
I would move that we approve that we accept the proclamation and read into the record the proclamation for Lieutenant Michael Bastinelli's retirement that was presented to
Is
us.
there a second?
Second.
You want to read that one? David, you want to do that?
We should probably vote on it first. Then
Okay.
Read it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
All right. Village of Franklin, County of Oakland, proclamation, Michael T. Bastinelli, Police Lieutenant. Whereas Michael T. Bastinelli has been employed as a police officer for the Village of Franklin since September 8, 2007, hired by then Chief Patrick T. Brown. And whereas Michael T. Bastinelli, prior to his service as a full-time police officer in Franklin, served for 10 years as a Detroit police officer assigned to DPD's 10th and 12th precincts. And whereas Michael T. Bastinelli graduated from the Detroit Police Academy in March of 1998 and also attained a bachelor's degree from Concordia University in Ann Arbor in March of 2006. Whereas Michael T. Bastinelli has proven to be an exceptional patrolman, detective, and command officer for the Franklin Police Department, receiving many commendations for outstanding service during his 16 years of duty to the village, too numerous to mention. And whereas Michael T. Bastinelli successfully served as detective, sergeant, and lieutenant on the Franklin Police Department, having been promoted to these positions by Chief Daniel D. Roberts. Whereas Michael T. Bastinelli graduated from the prestigious and challenging Northwestern University School of Staff and Command on November 13, 2015. And whereas Michael T. Bastinelli has chosen to retire on September 15, 2023, after 16 years of outstanding service to the citizens of the Village of Franklin. And whereas the Village of Franklin and Bingham Farms have benefited greatly by Lieutenant Michael T. Bastinelli's dedicated and outstanding service. Now therefore be it resolved that the Franklin Village Council does hereby publicly recognize, commend, and thank Lieutenant Michael T. Bastinelli for his outstanding dedicated service as a police officer, detective, sergeant, and lieutenant on the Franklin Police Department, and wishes to express its sincere gratitude for the invaluable service Michael T. Bastinelli has rendered in keeping the citizens of the Village of Franklin safe. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution and expression of civic appreciation be presented to Lieutenant Michael T. Bastinelli on behalf of the undersigned.
Cool.
And the
Okay.
police department did a wonderful, had a nice little get-together, it was well put together, and Lieutenant Bastinelli was well recognized,
Great guy, we'll miss him.
Yeah.
for sure.
Thank you, David. All right, so last item on the agenda, a revised site plan for 3077 Telegraph Road. There's a McKenna document in here. Roger, can you tell us about the highlights here?
You have, as I recall it, a slight change in the way the landscape works at the south end of this project. And the intent here was to modify some, I can't remember all the details, but to modify the amount of impervious surface with the replacement of grasses and planting in that one corner. And it's on the document, on the outline that you see in front of you, it's in the upper left portion of that description.
Any comments from the planning commission on their thoughts?
What did the planning commission, what was their?
Planning Commission recommends the adoption of the revised site plan.
Relatively small changes.
Yes. Mostly most of the biggest thing was they had parking that they would have needed to put if they had the landscaping where they did. They actually never intended to use that space for parking. So that was a miscommunication between the architect and and so anyway, they were trying to adopt it and change it, but that also forced them to add permeable surface to make sure that the landscaping also fit the footprint they're trying to change. So,
It looks like they offset that by adding some equivalent open space, so.
Landscaping, yeah. Yep.
Okay,
so there's a slight change percentage-wise, but
I visited the property today to just try and understand, so specifically what's being changed?
Along the southern border,
Yep.
they have there was parking, it was originally approved was parking there, but there's actually a curb that they're moving, removing that parking. It should show in, I don't know if it's in your packet, it was in our packet, they had the delta.
If I recall from the discussion, way long ago, originally when it was the bank, the curb was way down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then they came in with a plan to move the curb much further up and add some parking there. She then realized that, we don't want that parking there, but we want to have an additional pavement there because they wanted more radius and ability to get in and out of this outdoor event area. So they wanted this
Right.
all to be just like, where you can move around. But in doing so, they were now, because we changed our ordinance since the time they got this approved, they were now had to account for the fact that they were putting back impervious surface, even though it's still way less impervious surface than was there when it was a bank.
Bank, right.
But because they did it, they were, and I don't know, I think you guys probably could.
They made a change, so they had to come to us.
They had a giant water feature, and they shrunk the water feature and gave us back 500 feet of grass instead of 500 feet of water, additional water, which I probably would prefer anyways. The nice little water feature they have is good enough. We didn't need a whole lake out there. So it seems like what they've done is compliant, even though it's less than they even had, and they didn't probably even have to change it.
Right.
But they did, and that's good, and it complies, so.
And that's why we move forward with it. I mean, truth be told, would we like to get back as much impervious surface as possible when we have a site plan review? Yes, we would. But at the same time, they started in a situation that was actually, difficult for them because it started out as a large portion of the property was impervious due to the way the Bank of America had their parking and layout and the wraparound for the teller and everything. So they've, I think they've done as well as they
At the end
can.
of the day, it's still less impervious surface than when it was a bank.
I believe so, yeah. And that's why we recommended it.
So we need a motion to approve?
Yes. Did you just make that motion?
I will make a motion to approve.
Second?
Aye.
Any further discussion? Nope. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
I know it's about we're an hour earlier, I'm just noticing.
Just noticing that.
Just an observation.